These are the Horticultural Lighting Group LEDs, and these are the flagship models. Now, Horticultural Lighting Group and their quantum board design has revolutionized the LED industry. They've made LEDs that are extremely thin, simple, yet powerful. These are literally like a no-frills LED. Now, all the products in this video are going to be linked in the description below. And please ask questions, give us advice, and subscribe. For the love of God, please subscribe. So let me tell you a little story that not many people know about HLG. The thing is, HLG was actually born out of two separate LED companies. One of them being Johnson Grow Lights by a guy named Steven Johnson. And the other one called Northern Grow Lights by a guy named Amit Chandra. Now, these guys were, Steven being a grower, very experienced, while Amit being an engineer. They both had a real big fascination with LEDs, and both their companies were focusing on cob LED lights. Okay, chip on board, for those of you who are not familiar. Now, these chip on board LEDs, they are a little less expensive, but they also kind of hit the level of max efficiency. And both Steven and Amit recognized this, and in communicating with one another, they decided they were going to try this new Samsung LED that just came out. And they together developed this new LED called the QB304, QB for quantum board. And when this light came out, I think it was around 2016, it really, like I said earlier, revolutionized the LED industry. The LED was super thin, and it really didn't have any of the extra parts necessary that a lot of these other companies put on that honestly raised the cost and sometimes even made them less efficient. So now we're getting to today. HLG is, and the quantum board style is probably the biggest growing form factor of LED for grow lights out there. And there's a lot of Chinese knockoffs, to be honest. A lot of them have call themselves quantum boards, even though the quantum board is something that was developed by HLG, and they've just been following the same form factor. What people kind of have to watch out for is a lot of times they're not using the LEDs at the same standard that HLG is. And so you have to be aware when you're trying to buy a quantum board style looking LED. Another thing you really have to watch out for is a lot of these other companies don't have like safety ratings like an ETL or UL listing. Now, is that important for everyone? Not necessarily. If you're a commercial grower, it's basically mandatory, because what these ETL and UL really mean is a piece of equipment, electronics, are designed to fail safely, okay? So if you're growing in a professional manner, or honestly, you don't want maybe your house to catch on fire, you want a small likelihood of that, getting an ETL or UL listed light could be very important for you. A lot of customers have been asking us, what is the difference between Horticultural Lighting Group LEDs and these ones that look, honestly, exactly just like them? And honestly, in many cases, the specifications look identical. Well, here's the answer. HLG is made in the USA. They try to use the best componentry possible, and they're very honest and upfront about how efficient their light is. Let's dive into that a little bit more. HLG uses a very high performance driver that is honestly a little bit more expensive, and it's known to last longer. A lot of other companies do use Meanwell drivers, but they use the less expensive ones, the ones that tend to be a little bit less efficient. But I've noticed that these other companies, I think they want to use a Meanwell driver, even if it is more entry-level driver, because the name Meanwell is pretty synonymous with just good ballast for LED lighting. But you have to realize not all Meanwell drivers are created equal. It's like, comparing an entry-level, 3 Series BMW to like the 7 Series $100,000 BMW. Yes, they're both BMWs, but one's 30 grand and the other one's 100 grand. With the Meanwell drivers, it's the same thing. A lot of these imitation LEDs are using the Meanwell drivers because they have the brand name. But the HLG, they've invested in the ones that are more efficient, and they're designed to last longer. And that's an important distinction when you're putting a pretty big investment into a LED grow light. Another distinction that's really, really important that I want to put out there is LED efficiency. And first, let's go over some terms. So if you've ever heard of U-mole per joule or micromole per joule, it's really a determining factor of what the efficiency is of the LED grow light. So Usually this number is between 1.5 and around 3.0. And I will say every year it is creeping up a little bit because LEDs are much like computers. Where computers get faster and less expensive every year, LEDs get more efficient and less expensive every year. So the important part that I really want to focus on is each company will usually put out some type of number of U-moles per joule. So with Horticultural Lighting Group, they take their 550 V2 R-Spec, sent it to a third-party independent laboratory testing facility in Anaheim, California called Light Laboratory Inc. Now, Light Laboratory Inc. has no vested interest in how well or, poorly the light would do, but they test it and they have to stamp their names on it. So the HLG 550 came out at about 2.67 micromoles per joule. Now that is really high. That is honestly, today, probably one of the most efficient lights out there. Now there are some Chinese lights we've noticed that claim even up to 2.7 micromoles per joule. HLG took one of these lights that claimed a 2.7 micromole per joule and sent it to the light laboratory test. And when it came back, it was actually only at 2.5, which is a pretty big difference. And that means some of these companies are claiming they're really efficient when in fact they're not. And I really want to emphasize this. Every LED company worth its salt has sent all of their lights to a light laboratory test to see how efficient they are. And if you're gonna buy one of these LED lights, I highly recommend from any company, you ask for their third-party independent light laboratory results. Now, HLG actually uploads these to every product page. And if you go to growershouse.com, we upload the document on every product page there as well. So you can see exactly what conditions the light was tested under, the wattage, voltage, amperage, how efficient it was, the spectrum, everything. If you ask a different LED company, like let's say potentially one of these Chinese replicas, if they've done a third-party, independent test, and if they say yes, ask for the results. Ask them to send you that PDF. If they don't, I would be very wary of buying their LEDs. And to be honest, I think HLG right now is the only company I've ever seen that has actually taken their independent results and just uploaded them to the web. And that's like 100% full transparency. Now let's dive into the three models that we're going to be focusing on today. So first off, we have the 550 V2 R-Spec. Then we have the 550 V2 B-Spec, and then we have the 550 Echo. So of these three lights, let's go over the specifications and features and why you'd use one versus the other. So first off, the R-Spec. So this light is basically a 480 watt light that can cover about a 4.5 foot by 4.5 foot area in flower and about a 6 foot by 6 foot area in veg. So as I bring that up, this light can be used for both flowering and vegetative phases. It is designed with a little bit of a 670, 660 nanometer deep red LEDs. So I would say this light is slightly more geared towards flowering, although since it does have a broad spectrum white light, it works well for veg. So then why do they have this B-Spec? What is this B-Spec light? So this B-Spec light really is made specifically for veg, okay? So it has more of a 470 nanometer, which is a pretty deep blue LED, and that allows it to be really good light for your plants when you're trying to have very short internodal growth, so that space between branches, so that you get bushier plants once they do go into flower, and usually you get more bud sites. So now let's move on to the Echo. So what is this Echo light all about? So it's still coming in at around the same wattage, around the 480 watts, but it's slightly different because, HLG really realized that the market needed a less expensive light for more of the entry-level person. So it has slightly different LEDs, and they made the board just one unified board, which would cut down on the cost. So this light's gonna come in at a couple $100 less expensively, but they also make it in a 3000K, which is more of your flowering and go all the way from seedling to harvest, or they also have a 4000K, which is your one that's more dedicated towards veg. Now, even though this light is less expensive, you still can do about the 4.5 by 4.5 feet for flower and the 6 feet by 6 feet for veg. Lastly, each one of these three lights, it actually has an adjustable knob, and that adjustable knob can dial down the wattage of each light. So, like I said, each light's about 480 watts. That knob can dial the intensity all the way down to 200 watts. And one thing I would recommend is a lot of people, let's say you're bringing small plants into your tent to go under the LED for the first time. Instead of raising your LED up really far to be far away from your plants so that the intensity is not too great, just dial the LED down. And so you'll go from, let's say, 480 watts to 200 watts. You can keep it closer to your plants, and you're not using as much energy, which is obviously good for your wallet, good for the planet. Now, I'm also including at the end of this video some more specifications on these lights so you can kind of compare the three models to figure out which one might be best for you. And on top of that, of course I went over a lot in this video, but ask questions in the comments below and we'll help answer them to make sure that you can make an informed purchasing decision. This is Nate from Growers House. Happy growing.